the Podfix Network.
Hello and welcome to episode 226 of the Filmmakers Podcast. This is a podcast where we talk filmmaking, from indie film to studio films and everything in between. How to get them made, how to make them, and how to try not to F it up, in our very, very humble opinion. Today on the show we have the fantastic director and writer, Ben Wheatley. Oh yes, we do. Ben Wheatley's latest film, In the Earth, is out now. Do go see it. It is brilliant. And he shot the movie during the pandemic. Ben Wheatley is known for the movies Down Terraced, Kill List, Sightseers, A Field in England, Free Fire, Happy New Year, Colin Burstead, High Rise, Rebecca, and In the Earth. He is an absolute delight, and it was a joy to get him on. Thank you very much, Christopher Taylor, for setting it up for us. You star. Ben dives into how he makes his movies. He talks about how he went from short films and commercials and online virals. He talks about pre-production and production. Why do storyboards? Why he doesn't like the read-throughs or rehearsals. He also talks about pacing, camera angles, editing, and the difference between indie films and studio films. He also talks about working with crew, why he hates musicals, what directing is like, and we go in depth into his latest movie, In the Earth, which he shot during the pandemic. Well, I suppose he shot and released it during the pandemic. Myself and Dom Lemoire had a brilliant chat with him, and that is all to come for you on this week's episode of the Filmmakers Podcast. I am Giles Alderson, and I am currently sat in my caravan. Yes, caravan in Suffolk, in the rain. Well, not in the rain, the caravan's in the rain. And it has just been announced. I am currently 2 days in to the feature film, which is called Wolves of War. It is a drama set in World War II. By the time you listen to this, I'll be 4 days in, or more depending on when you are listening to this. And I have to say, it's going really well. I'm really enjoying it. The crew have been incredible. My cast are incredible. And as it has been announced in Deadline this week, I can tell you my cast is Ed Westwick, star of Gossip Girl and very recently Enemy Lines. Matt Willis, who starred in Allies and very recently Madness in the Method. We've also got the amazing Rupert Graves joining us. Now, Rupert you'll probably know from so much TV, but very recently Sherlock Holmes. He plays Lestrade. We have also got the fantastic Sam Gittings, who was the lead in the feature film Break recently, which Terry Dwyer and Dean Fisher were the producers of, who produced my last film, A Stranger in Our Bed, which is in final stages of post, by the way. Excellent news. And we have the fantastic Jackson Booz, Anastasia Martin, Eva Magyar, Maximilian Hildebrandt. I'm so over the moon with how it's going. Honestly, it's always so nerve-wracking the first day. It is. Even Steven Spielberg says that. When he goes into shooting his latest film, he's nervous. I was nervous, of course. But you've just got to embrace it. You've got to power through. And as long as you've done the prep, as long as you've really dived in there and done everything you need to do before you get to set, when you get there, you can throw it all out the window because it's in your brain, your shot lists, your storyboards. Yeah, obviously you're following them. Obviously you're telling the team what you're doing. But when you get there, you can change it. And you can change your mind and you can adapt. The actors do something different. The light does something different. The room is different, how you remembered it on that recce months ago. And there's so much you can play with. And that's what I love being on set, because it's fascinating. You suddenly go, how are we going to make this movie? How is it actually going to happen? And then suddenly your actors turn up. And then they look amazing. The costume's done an amazing job. The makeup looks incredible. The hair's all been cut. They look World War II. They look like they're in the movie. It's already. And you rehearse with them. You're like, okay, well, we're rehearsing. Let's talk through the scene. Let's rehearse it. Block it out. Brilliant. And you talk with your DP, who's the fantastic Stuart White. It's looking incredible, by the way. And next thing you know, you're going, cool. All right, let's start this position here with the camera. And turn over. And my ace first AD, Joe Stringer, goes, are you ready? Okay, let's roll camera, roll sound. And Giles, take it away. And I go, and action. And it happens. it happens. Movie making happens, and suddenly before you know it, it's the end of the first day and you've got this amazing footage in the can. I'm really happy, honestly. I won't bore you too much with it now. I'm just kind of, on the ride. I'm in it. I'm in the trenches, literally. And it has rained the first couple of days, but hey, what would a movie be? What would a movie be with me then if it wasn't raining? And I didn't expect it. Kind of a lot of people have only brought shorts. But anyway, we dive in and we get on with it because we're movie makers, and I hope you're inspired enough to go make yours too, because you can do it. You can make it happen. But anyway, like I say, I don't want to bore you too much now. I will fill you in more on this as we go. Probably more from this caravan right here. So let's on the caravan park. So let's dive in. This is the episode which I can't wait for you lot to hear. It is with the amazing Ben Wheatley. He is a huge inspiration for me and many other filmmakers, of someone who just goes out there and does it. So sit back, relax, and enjoy this week's episode of the Filmmakers Podcast with myself, Dom Lenoir, and the brilliant Ben Wheatley. Hey, buddy.
How you doing?
Very good, thank you, man. How are you?
I'm good.
Good. I loved India. Thoroughly freaked me out, and my debut movie is also proper freaky. But this one sort of really sunk into my skin. It got really under there, and it just hung in the air for ages. And I thought, I'm not going to be able to sleep properly. I need to read something a bit lighter. It's great, mate. It really is. It's this psychedelic trip that just goes on, and you're like, where are we going? What's happening? And I just thought it was brilliant filmmaking. Very it very sits into your wheelhouse of what you make. But I also thought it was like an extension of what you do. So yeah, really nice. How do you feel about it now? What's your, obviously because it was something that you said, you, from what I've read, and please tell us otherwise, you were sort of in that moment where you sort of pandemics hit, everyone's sort of struggling, Tomb Raider's maybe falling down at that point. You're like, right, what do I do? And you went, I know, I'm just going to splurge something out there. Is that kind of what happened within the Earth?
Yeah, but it's the same as the other films, to be honest. It's the same as what happened with The Field in England and with Colin Bursted. They're not similar scale movies done over a similar amount of time, so usually it's just the ebb and flow of what happens in a year, where if there's a big movie coming and then it doesn't happen for some reason, then you kind of go, okay, well, you can make something else. So it's not as unusual as is kind of being talked about. It's not we would have made something that year anyway, whatever happened, I would have thought.
Yeah, I thought so too, because that's just you. You're prolific. I think this is like the ones in the first year that you might not have made a film as well. You're that prolific. You seem like you're constantly working.
Yeah, trying to. But you wouldn't ask that question of a bus driver, would you? You're constantly driving buses. I can't believe it. You're always up to some kind of bus action.
There's always wheels turning on that bus. There's a song about it, I'm sure. I'm the same, mate. When people say, "Oh no, you're always working, you're always doing stuff," like, yeah, I want to get shit done. So no, it's great.
Yeah, well, I generally write stuff for me, and if I want to see a film, I'll write it, and then that'll be the action of living inside it as you write it. There's a lot to be said for that. And I wrote quite a few scripts during lockdown. I didn't watch much stuff. I couldn't face watching other people's stuff, but I kind of just went into writing all sorts of different genre things and odds and sods. And then I started talking to Andy Stark, the producer that I work with on Rook Films, and we kind of just started saying, we had this scheme that there would be a moment after the lockdown where there'd be about 2 weeks before the jobs came back. So we figured we could probably make a film in that period. And that was the plan, basically. We went, what have we got? And then there's like pragmatic stuff about, you had to be safe. It was most likely to be something set outdoors, and that would make your life a lot easier. And so I did have a script that was that, luckily. So I'd been thinking about a pragmatic horror film in that respect. But also I'd been looking at stuff like the Halloween schedule, which we'd found online, and we were looking through that and going, it's like 17, 18 days, I think, Halloween.
Yeah, but you shot in 15, right?
Yeah, but that's another thing. There's a lot of kind of talk about how short the shoot is, but it's not really. It's, if you think about like what genre movies and B movies were like in the 60s and 70s, it's about the right length. I'm not a kind of B movie shoot would go from about think 3 days, isn't it, for Gun Crazy, and then it goes up to about kind of 15 days is like the longest you'd get for something, and then a Hollywood movie would be a little bit longer, be like twice as long, about 6 weeks. But that was, it was unusual to shoot longer than that. And so if you got something like, I don't know, Shock Corridor, I think is 11 days, and some of that Corman stuff was over a weekend or 5 days.
Yeah, so totally, it's doable.
I never think about it in terms of that being a restriction.
Were you sort of conscious? I mean, because as soon as lockdown came, there was a lot of people thinking, let's make a COVID-style film. I mean, something that was really exciting about your one is, even though it kind of covered that territory, it still very much felt like a film. It didn't feel like a lockdown film. I mean, the locations you used, it never felt like it was sort of enclosed or inhibited in any way. Was that sort of part of the process in trying not to fall into that trap?
Didn't really think about it, to be honest. I didn't even think there would be this conversation about COVID films, But I think that the zeitgeist was in an interesting place at that point. It's like anything you could think of was literally happening around you instantly, So if you went, I want to buy some loo roll, that'd be a good idea. Everyone had bought loo roll. And equally, if you're thinking, I'll make a film about COVID, I'll do it on Zoom. It wasn't an original idea because everyone was thinking that exactly the same time, So I think that side of it, but also like the idea of horror and genre, it's about metaphor to illustrate your life. But if you're making something that is exactly what's happened, there's no metaphor in that. There's no illustration. It's just something that everybody's got an opinion on as well and knows has literally happened to them. So that would be problematic. I'd never think about it in that way. I mean, in the same way that we had, like I was going to do this zombie thing with Channel 4, and as soon as this COVID happened, I was like, we all chatted about when we can't do it because it's just too close and it's too much like what's happening. So why would anyone want to see it? And so we stopped working on that straight away. And I think there is that issue it is an issue for genre that we literally lived through a horror film and we saw what would happen, what was true about the horror films that we'd seen before, but what also wasn't true, So I thought that was quite interesting.
I definitely agree. I think people have sort of held back on doing too many sort of, hey, we're in pandemic, but some have come out and done really, really well. And I think, even though yours is not a pandemic, it's a pandemic film, but it's not based on our pandemic that's happening right now. It's based on just a really cool idea. How did you go about shooting that then? What's your process as a director to go, okay, this is my schedule? Do you jump straight into sort of storyboarding? Do you jump, because I know you've been talking a lot about that at the moment with Meg 2 that you're doing. And I wondered if you do the same with your indie films. Did you start doing that with Down Terrace, for example, or have you changed as a director in terms of what you need to prep?
Boards are only worth doing if you control the environment that you're in. Because if you can't control it, why are you drawing it? Because you're never going to be able to make those shots happen. Films where I haven't got any control over the environment, I tend not to board. So, or that are in open spaces like Field in England was, there was kind of no point boarding that. I might do like a light shot listing or something for that. And the same with Sightseers was done like that, just like shots I'd like, but not necessarily boarded, and then I can be more flexible on the day. In the Earth was the same because there's no point, we only recorded it twice, and it's not that kind of film. It's not a gripped film either, so you're not going to be having like developing shots and people moving around. It's much more kind of you live in the environment and then you work out what that's going to be. You set the camera positions and then you block the actors, and that's it. And that's something I'd learned from doing stuff like Ideal and television work, where you're thrown in at the deep end and you've got to just block like 10 people in a room and you've got half an hour to do it, kind of thing. So yeah, but on other movies, I've completely storyboarded them, every frame of them, and I think it's a really great way of, certainly with a film that costs a load of money, it's the way of seeing the film for the first time with the cheapest amount of money. And often I'll draw them myself and then look at them and I'll be able to see enough in them to be able to project myself into the film and see the film more clearly than if I was just imagining it in my head. But then there's another stage where professional storyboard artists will come on and redraw my drawing so they're a bit clearer for everyone else.
Yeah, I don't know if you can draw. I can't draw. Have you become better at it then over time, or is it just necessity?
Well, the thing about boards is that some storyboard artists don't draw things that can't be shot. That's what I found over time. And that you can also yourself draw things that can't be shot. It's just you draw it, you're conveniently drawing people in a space which they'll never be able to get into, or like you're not allowing for the lens in a way. So you can end up with a load of boards which are less than useful, you know, because they make giving you a false confidence about what you're going to be able to shoot. When you get there, you go, oh, I can't get these 3 heads in this configuration. It's just not going to happen. And then it throws you completely. So I've done a lot of movies where you roll with it on the day a bit more, and that's fine as long as you don't lose your nerve, you know. And that can happen. You can just be confused. And
how much do you go into the rehearsal process and sort of adapting what's on the page versus on set? Do you like to sort of just block it and see what happens, or do you like to keep fairly to the, you know, what you've planned on the acting side, I suppose, and the dialogue? Well,
the dialogue, it just depends on. Most of the films I've done, there's been no rehearsal for, so there's no time to rehearse. You can't get the actors together to rehearse. I've been on films where you've done a read through, which has always been a disaster, you know, because a script is such a horrible document. It's not really made for that kind of situation. So it's just like a terrible radio play, and people lose confidence in that. And then, so I tended not to do any rehearsal for a long time. But then recently, I think on Rebecca, we did quite a lot of rehearsal, and that was quite useful, you know, for the script. But then it wasn't my script. When it's my own script, I'm more like, oh, I'll fix it on the day. If I need to fix it, I'll see it, and I'll play it until it's right. You go, oh, that's not, that phrase isn't working, or this feels phony, and then you start to strip it out. But I tend to think of rehearsal as, or have thought of rehearsal in the past as lost performance. You know, you kind of go, oh, the rehearsal was really good, and then you go, just do it like it was on the rehearsal, and it never happened. You know, so I think that's a difference between theatre and cinema, you know, in that respect, that you can lose the spontaneity and lose the urgency of the performance by over rehearsing.
Is it the same way with the camera then as well? Again, you can necessarily over talk it through sometimes with your DP. Here, is it a case of, again, you're finding it as you go, or again, you've totally planned it to into its life and then you throw it away and play on the day? Similar to your actors, is it the same?
Well, it depends what it is. It's like, you know, if you've got like the Coen brothers movies where they are very tight to the boards, but they must have an incredible, or Spielberg stuff, where you must have an incredible kind of internal perceptual idea of space to be able to do that. Because oftentimes you get to the set and the movement you were going to do is too slow, or it doesn't quite, the beats that you wanted, the changeovers in the blocking are not quite working. And all these things have to be kind of honed on the day to make them work. So I would never be able to do that in terms of like, I'd make a blueprint and then it just gets made. And then also that doesn't allow for the actors to bring stuff to it. But I can see there's a type of filmmaking which does allow that if you're like basically a genius like those people are. You know, you would be able to, you must be able to hold it in your head and see it and know the timings and then go and execute it. I mean, Hitchcock's the same, isn't he? It's like much more planned, and then it's very, very super specific what the stuff is. But I find it's more of a kind of a mix of those two positions of like going, oh, you find the truth of it on the day, but you know you've got a really good idea of what it's meant to be.
It's really interesting that you sort of mention pacing and timing of actual, you know, how long a camera angles take, because it's not something we necessarily go into too much, but it's incredibly important, and it's a really fascinating thing. And I suppose when you're sort of shooting a whole bunch of coverage and you've got loads and loads of angles to play with, you've got a lot more options in the edit if the scene is running a bit slower or a bit faster than you intended. But I suppose if you're going for much more long dolly shots, etc., and you've got specific ideas for those kind of things, you've kind of limited your options in the edit, and you have to think that stuff through very carefully for it to work out. Otherwise, you're kind of a bit stuffed, I suppose.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, it's like what you want is a master shot that does the whole scene, and that you don't have to have any coverage. That's what you want. That's the ideal. But that doesn't allow for an issue with performance, which might be a slowness in performance that you don't spot on the day, or a weakness in the script. So if your script is perfect, then you're in much better position to be able to do this stuff. And also if there's an issue with like timing on the day and timing in the edit suite, where what you can succumb to as a director on the floor is theatre. And you think it's really good what you've just seen, but what you've seen is theatre and it's not cinema, and when you get it back and you go, oh yeah, the performances are great, but Christ, it took them 10 minutes to walk across the room, and then it's like, oh God, it's really boring. But it wouldn't have been boring, on a room above a pub when you went to see it as a play. It would have been amazing. But now there's a problem. So the goal, I think, is always to try and do it in a single shot. But the insurance is the coverage. But I tend not to cover for, the TV coverage, which is like 3 sizes on everybody. I tend not to do that because that then grinds the performances into the ground, and also the editing. I feel like that's the, they talk about the difference between television and film, and that kind of is the difference, is the pacing of and the air around performances, as opposed to the iron grip of control of the cutting on lines and cutting on emotions to construct a story, which is usually weighted towards producer-led or writer-led filmmaking.
What about emotional performances? Do you like to do those? Say that someone's got to cry. Would you go in for a close-up first? Would you go in for your moving master first on something like that? How would you plan to do that?
Well, I don't know. I think you'd be dangerous game to be kind of getting an actor to reset, in that respect, to have a complete breakdown in one long take and then think that you're going to get another thing that's the same with that, So you'd probably, you'd either do it so that you were going to do it in 1 or 2 takes, because that's probably all you'd get anyway before you'd rinse them for the day, So it's kind of, I don't know. I've done crying stuff before, and it apart from anything, if they're doing it right, their faces go all puffy after the first take, so it's kind of screwed.
Yeah. That's fascinating. Rebecca, for me, I loved the opening shot. Was like a dream, and I thoroughly enjoyed, because I knew then what kind of film I was watching. Do you kind of think about your opening shots with all your movies in that way, or is it just what happens, and again, when you get to the editing room, things change?
I don't know. I guess so. Obviously I've drawn them probably by that point. But sometimes what the opening shot is going to be is not necessarily what it is by the time you get to the edit suite. Yeah, it's kind of 50-50 really. Really it's more is that you have a grace period of about 20 minutes at the beginning of the film, which is, it's hard to screw the beginning of the film too badly because people are on your side, they've come to see the movie. But the rot sets in the middle, and that's when you the most dangerous part of a film, because you're dealing with a much longer stretch than you would do with a TV show. You're already into the 40th minute, 50th minute, and it's like, and you're dealing with several strands of story and how they're kind of coming together and pulling through. So that's a more worrying area, that sag. And then the end of it, which is like the out, is one of the most important things, because it's basically what sets people's opinion on the whole film,
That's what people are left with, isn't it? The out. And that's the thing they can remember the most about any film. The rest of it could have been turd. But if the ending's amazing, people go away with going, yeah, it was all right, it was cool. You talked about editing. Do you find that's made you easier on set? Because like you say, it sounds like you were editing in the Earth as you were sort of filming it that night. Have you found that editing has made you a better filmmaker? Has it really helped with the vision of what you want to do?
In the Earth was cut in the evenings, but Free Fire was cut on the floor. As the shots were shot, it went straight into the edit, and that's the best. And so was Rebecca, and that's the best way of doing it, because it reduces conversation. You don't know. Someone goes, "Well, I don't know if you've got that," and you go, "Well, I have. Here it is," and they go, "Oh, okay." The end of the conversation. As opposed to the mystery of, "Oh, have you covered it properly?" It's like, well, now we're going to have to get all the rushes out and look at them to see if it's not. But editing, I come from an editing background and a post background, and it certainly calms me a lot, and it means I can shoot a lot quicker than I would do if I didn't know how to put a scene together. So I cut it in my head as I'm watching it if I'm not editing it at the time, and I know when it's, I can be pretty confident that I'm right, and I can move on in a way that you hear stories of people just covering stuff and just not being sure that they've got it, And my attitude is usually, it's like a kind of, I gather the rushes. So I'm watching a take and I'm going, oh, that first 40 seconds is all right, the middle bit's great, and the ending's not what I want. But then take 2, the beginning's great, the middle bit's no good, and blah, blah, blah. And once I get to the full thing of it all working, as long as I'm not shooting a oneer, then I'm like, okay, then we can move on. And sometimes you get people going, really? Well, but there's another school of thought, which is like the complete perfect take every time, or they move towards that perfect take. But I think that causes problems with tiredness and actors working at different speeds and all these things. So you don't. That seems to me to be a luxury to be able to do that.
I mean, I think having a good script supervisor is very, very important as well. When you're sort of focused on the takes, to have that second opinion. It could be your DP in some occasions in terms of whether you've got the right parts of the take on the different takes. And making those decisions before you sort of move on. Just go back to your audience expectations. How do you sort of plan your, in terms of if you're sort of setting up a certain expectation, do you tend to just go with your own idea of an ending, or do you sort of pay much sort of attention to audience expectations for genre and that kind of thing?
Depends what the film is. And, I've done films that have been screen tested and the information back from those is interesting, but generally it's just your own taste. You have hopefully making the film that you want to see, and you trust your own judgment. It's kind of the job. And the idea of like going out and asking loads of people is kind of an anathema to that, because it means you don't know what you're doing, or you don't understand what an audience wants, or you don't understand what you want yourself. So I'm not one for screening it loads or screening it to like executives loads or any of that stuff. It's kind of, and a lot of the earlier movies weren't seen by anyone really. Like 1 or 2 screenings and then they were done. I mean, in the beginning, like Kill List was virtually finished. It had all the effects work done. There was no rough cut screening or any of that. It was the final version of it was shown. I mean, Sightseers was different. There was a problem with it in the middle, and we did 1 day reshoot to glue the 2 halves of the film together, which was, we'd seen that from our own screenings that it worked, and then it stopped working. We're like, why is that? And it was just a bit in the middle that needed sorting out. So the other films are pretty much been exactly how they've come out of the edit suite.
That's fascinating. And what about in terms of the difference between indie films and studio movies, if you like, then? Like, say, maybe going back to In the Earth, we're sort of going back to your indie roots in a way, in terms of, like you say, with Sightseers, Kill List and Down Terrace as well, which are all just fabulous films, by the way, honestly. So cool. And I like that there was no interference, because sometimes there can be too much interference and it can be annoying. But the difference between studio and indie and just going out there and doing something, is there a difference for you? Do you prefer it? It sounds like you like to just sort of, I can get on with this on my own, thank you. Is that how can you set out your store?
Oh, well, this is something realised quite early in, that the genre itself is not necessarily about content. It's also about budget. And like a budget at a certain level is a different film entirely from a budget at a small. It's not like you have a sliding scale where you start with indie movies and you just apply what you've learned from those as you do films with more and more budget. It certainly hasn't been that way for me, but I've made adverts and television at the same time, and they're very different from indie filmmaking in how the hierarchy works. So the television hierarchy is the producer and the writer and maybe the actor, and then the director and the DOP and the editor are almost at a kind of a similar level in terms of their influence over how the show is made, and everybody has to respect all the notes that are written. There's no kind of going, I'm going to do it my way. It's like you're much more part of a team in that respect. Advertising similar, where you're below a client and the agency, and then you're given an awful lot of rope, but you don't have a final say on anything. You're there doing your craft job, which is fine, which is great. And the studio is a similar thing. It's like once a certain amount of money has been spent, you can't treat it in the same way as you would do a low budget thing, because it's a totally different situation, So then you have to kind of, I think you basically just have to work out where you sit in things and then so that you don't end up it doesn't end up really uncomfortable, basically. So you have to know where you are. And
I suppose on sort of higher budget studio stuff, there's a lot more transparency required from their end. You can't just sort of get on with it and say, yeah, it's all fine. You have to do a bit more prep stuff and showing what you're doing. And
it's more like an ad in that respect, that it's negotiated, and you wouldn't go off and madly do something. Well, you couldn't. I think it's that compression of script you couldn't get away with, which you do on an indie thing that you've written yourself, where you just go, oh, I'm going to do that. But even at the lowest end of the budgets, there would be. I mean, we did some stuff on Kill List where we rehearsed it, a rare bit of rehearsal, like the on the Friday before we were going to shoot on the Monday. We didn't like it and rewrote it over the weekend. And so when the film 4 got the rushes back, they were completely different from the script that they'd signed off on. And at that point, we didn't even think that would be a problem to anybody. But of course, it's a terrible faux pas, but we thought, well, it makes the film better, so that's all right. But,
But they signed off on that. So therefore they're going, yes, but that's my decision. I signed off on it. Therefore, you're questioning my abilities, right, in some way?
Well, no, it's just the process, isn't it? If you paid for something and now you're not getting it back,
yes, yeah,
but it's something else you're getting, and so you have to be, are you happy with that or not? Oh my god, so but then that got slightly fixed for Sightseers, where we just went in the mission state. I wrote a mission statement for it saying, I'm really excited about improvisation, I'm going to do loads of improvisation. And
clever.
So the rushes were never the same for that. And there was hundreds of hours of them, so I don't think anyone sat through them or watched them at that point.
No, and by that point, you'd already established yourself as, Ben Wheatley film. People kind of knew what they were potentially getting at that point, right?
I don't know if that is ever a thing. It's like it's more likely. It's like all power will be filled. If there's a vacuum, it will be filled by someone. So as long as you're always going, I know what I'm doing, and I'm going to do this, then you're all right. But as soon as you don't say that, no matter who you are, it will suddenly be filled out with somebody else coming in and sorting that.
Yeah. Well, how have you, maybe let's just jump back, because you said you started off doing commercials, you were doing internet bits and pieces that actually, some of them blew up, which was fantastic. And then you did some TV for a bit, and then you said, I want to make features. Was it always kind of your desire to make features? Was there a film that inspired you to want to do that?
Yeah, I always wanted to make films, and I wanted to make them since I was a teenager, but I just didn't know how, and I think that the world of, there was no books, there was nothing. I didn't think you can get into the National Film School until I think it's still the same. You can get into your 25 or 26.
Yeah.
And, I remember shooting stuff on a video camera and not even realizing you had to edit it. I didn't know that was what you did. So it just took a very long time to work all that stuff out. But film-wise, I don't know. I watched a lot of movies in my 20s and covered off on as much of the Hollywood stuff as I could, going back to the 30s, and then a lot of French new wave stuff and neorealism and German new German cinema and stuff. So, and then British 60s and 70s stuff as well. So I'd watched a ton of stuff, and then I just kind of stopped. And I think it was like you're basically, I found that once I got to 30, it was a lot easier.
Oh, really? Oh, yeah. How come? Just
because no one takes you seriously until you're a bit older. So. And I had to calm down a bit as well. So it was kind of and then Down Terrace was a film I was trying to make before I was 40. That was the
aim.
I took about 10 years of kind of making ads and doing TV and
whatever you could get your hands on, right?
Yeah. And then that got, because I always figured, I wanted to learn as much as I could about every part of the production side of it, having known nothing, so then it took that long to basically learn it, I think.
I think that's a good amount of time as well. And people do jump in, and it's great they jump in, but your due diligence, go on, help other people, hold a boom for people, go do the art department, whatever it is, because the more you learn about that, the better I feel you become as a director. I think it's really important to just do that.
As long as you can understand a department in some degree, even if you don't fully fully comprehend the details. Yeah, you can't fully do it or not good at it. Yes, absolutely.
Technical knowledge is super important, and I've been getting a lot of questions about the budgets of stuff and what's it like working on a low budget. But the flip side of knowing how everything works means that you can make movies that back into any budget. So you're never making a low budget movie. You're only ever making a film that's for the right money.
Yes,
and that right money can be 10 grand or 500 quid, but you still have designed the film that you can make it for that amount of cash.
Yeah, I agree with that. Yeah, that's really cool and true and very true. When Down Terrace happened, did you manage to raise them again? The same thing. Did you manage to raise the money yourself? How did that actually come to fruition? Because we're 2009, wasn't it? So you're probably shooting in 2008, 2007. So how did did you manage to raise the cash to do this? And I can't imagine it was massive amounts.
Well, it was $6,000.
There you go. Yeah.
And it was $2,000 each. So from Andy and Rob Hill and me. So we just put $2,000 each into it. And I actually got the $2,000 back.
Did you?
6 months ago.
Yes, it works. It works.
11 years in, it broke even enough.
Wow.
We paid back because we did it as deferred payment for the crew. Mm-hmm. And then we sold it in America and in the UK. And that money that we sold it for paid off the deferments So we were really happy about that, and that was job done as far as we were concerned. But we were still owed. There was still $6,000 owing on it. But the deals we signed at the time were so onerous that even though, I don't know, it made a couple of $100,000 at the DVD and Blu-ray sales by that point. No, just DVD sales, I think, at that point, and whatever they've got for
TV rights or whatever,
TV and all that. So it made a ton of money, but we never saw any of it because of the way that the deal was structured, and until, you know, now we've gotten back some money. Yeah.
Isn't it amazing how important it is to even understand those deals? Because when you're a filmmaker, you're like, please take my movie, you know, get it out there in the world. That's all I care about. But actually, your movie did really well. And at the time, you probably could have done with some of that money. And obviously, it's over the time as you've grown as well as a filmmaker. And therefore, people are looking at your first film as well. Yeah,
I mean, I think that it's the most expensive film school is making a film, you know, and the most effective film school. But you make the movie and then and to go through the sales thing on your own, which we did, and we did the international sales ourselves as well, was like, it opened up it shone a light in a lot of corners which we never would have seen into, you know, and as it went on over the years, we've understood how to do it hopefully better, you know.
Yes. Yeah, well, yourself, Andy Stark, you've worked with on pretty much as many films as I can see, you know, from the beginning till the latest, In the Earth, and Amy Jump as well, your wife, you've worked with a lot, you write with a lot, and I think that's lovely that you bring your teams up together. I think it's really important. You start off together and hopefully you can keep those relationships going, that you can continue, because why wouldn't you, right? It's hard to forge those relationships in this industry. What do you think a key advice would be to doing that, to keeping your crew on side so they will come and work with you again, if there is one you have? I thought it'd be really interesting from your side.
I don't know. You basically, a rule of thumb of just, it's easier to work with people you work with who are good. So why wouldn't you work with them again? You know, and the idea of trading up or whatever seems a bit odd to me always. That was something that never kind of crossed their minds, and we were making things outside of the system kind of anyway, you know, so making them at such a low budget that you needed to have that shorthand amongst the crew to be able to get through it in a frictionless way. You know, there's none of that kind of low budget aggravation, on-set aggravation kind of stories. Were never on any of the Rook shoots. We always got on really well. We're all friends, you know, so it never came up that there was screaming fits about not having enough money or working too late or any of those things, because it was all, we were very conscious about how far we were, you know, what we were doing with the crew in that respect.
Gosh, how embarrassing. It's Robbie. I know what he gets like if I don't answer. Bear with me. Sit there uncomfortably a minute. Robbie!
Hey, Giles. How's it going?
I'm in the middle of an episode. I had to answer to you because, you know.
I'm calling for some advice.
Well, you know, as they say, at first you don't succeed. Maybe skydiving isn't for you.
Yeah, good point.
But please, ask away.
Giles, a lot of people don't know this, but I'm actually friends with the Man of Steel himself.
What?
Mr. Kal-El.
What? Superman?
Yeah.
Are you?
Yeah. From Krypton. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, the man in the red and blue with the S logo. Yeah, he's quite a guy. Anyway, he has this issue because he's absolutely useless on Friday evenings.
Right.
But I think it's got something to do with his Bitcoin class that he goes to, his weekly Bitcoin meetup.
Really?
Yeah, you see, Giles, it's his crypto night. Crypto night.
Such a big build-up for it.
Testing.
But contrary to popular belief, Robbie, cryptocurrencies are not stored in crypto wallets. There's a fact for you.
They're not?
No, the only things that are stored there are the private and public keys. The funds are recorded on blockchain. They can only be accessed by someone with the correct public and private key.
I better tell Kal-El, it might fix his problem.
It really might. And if he signs up now with Coin Corner and uses the voucher code FILMBTC, he can get his Bitcoin journey started with some free sats. That might help his crypto nights.
Well, I will let him know.
You do that. And Robbie, you shouldn't go around telling people this.
Why?
Do you not know how Superman gets out of dangerous situations?
No, tell me.
Because he always has an escape. His cape, he wears a cape. Escape with an S on it. And here is my escape. Bye, Robbie! How did Warp, like say, after Down Terrace and getting Kill List going, was that a case of Down Terrace had done well enough for you now to reach out to other companies, and did Warp come on early? Was that the case to get your second film made? Because there's always we have a lot of filmmakers who do listen, who might have made a film, but they struggle to get the next one made. Did you have a specific tactic?
Well, we'd been talking to Warp for years, but not being able to get a meeting with them. But then it was, if I remember, it was like Film 4 Match made it. So they'd seen that the film had won a load of stuff, and we had a conversation with them, and then they introduced us to Warp, and then they said but that's basically going, these are the people who are going to look after you when we finance it. So that we're not going to give you the money on your own because we don't know you, but we'll put it through Warp. And at the time there was a digital film thing that they were doing where there was like 7 or 8 movies that were funded as part of a set of films that were co-funded by Studio Canal at the time, I think. So yeah, and so we met up with them, and then it was like, what do you want to do? And I said I had 3 scripts at different budget levels, and then they said, oh, what's the cheap one, basically? So when we did, and that was Kill List. But Kill List had been written like I'd written it over the Christmas, so and we met them in January. So
wow, it's fresh.
Well, it was, but I had to, I kind of pretended I'd been working on it for years, and then
as you do in this industry.
And that was it really. And I think it had one more draft, and then we shot it. So it was all super quick, and you can see that in the way the films are released, because it was like 2000. And you were saying before was Down Terrace shot in 2007? No, it was shot in 2009. It was.
Oh, was that quick? Wow!
And into the festival, bang, 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 like that. We're doing one a year for about 6-7 years, but also doing TV. So I was doing Doctor Who at the same time, and Ideal as well.
Yeah. I mean, like I say, it's prolific at that point. Did you feel that, like I say, was there a lot of people knocking on your door during that time? And how did you manage that and the expectation that kind of comes with being a successful indie filmmaker? Because you were, I mean, your name was all over the place back in the sort of the 10s.
Yeah, I didn't really think about it. I mean, we just went from job to job, and there wasn't lots of stuff coming in. I went and did all the, the general meetings in Hollywood and stuff, but nothing ever comes of those things. So it's much more of a longer game, of like a 5 or 6 year game. You didn't really think about it. We were just expected to fail at every point.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, and I don't know why you wouldn't think that. It's a gamble, the whole thing. And like after the reviews we got for Down Terrace were completely unexpected, and they were so good. We thought there's no way we'd ever get them again. And Kill List was really on a knife edge, as whether or not people thought, that it was going to be all right or not. And I always think of it in terms of the enemy. It's like the enemy will always like promote a band and then destroy the band like the next album. And it was, we were just waiting for that to happen each time,
And what's your kind of process for selection of projects in terms of what comes to you? Is there things that have come to you and you just thought it's a great opportunity, but it's just not really me? Or I
make extreme decisions on, if I think I shouldn't be doing it, I do it. So I've done that a few times, but then other stuff is just, you write scripts and you see if you can finance them, and if you can't, then they don't get made, and that's more that pushes it through. So there's no plan about what the films are that get made, or which is always a thing I always find amusing by the critical reaction to stuff of like, they're saying that there's a connection between the films, but the connection is, can they be financed?
Right. Which does make sense. And what about in terms of the writing then of those said projects? In terms of how do you go about, like say, where does your idea come from, and then how do you sit down to write it? Do you scriptment it? Do you stick notes up your wall? How do you do it, or is it different every time?
Different every time, but I mean, generally I do it as a list, and then I write, and then you just grow it basically, and you just keep writing it, rewriting it, reading it, writing it, and reading it, and it just slowly expands into the script. Sometimes with temp dialogue written in blah 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 or whatever, and then when I'm properly writing, I'm note it in the morning, and then write back the notes into the script in the afternoon, and then maybe put aside some time for doing some dialogue, like if it has to be really pulled out of nowhere, because that's the thing that tires me out the most. And then once that's all done, I shred the script, and then I start again the next day. So
wait, you just, because I've heard this and I didn't know it was actually true. You'll shred it, like the whole thing, so it's gone. and you'll start again.
Yeah, I've got it on the computer.
Oh, okay, good. So it's not completely.
But you basically, otherwise they start piling up all this paper all over the place. But I find it very hard to. I don't like scrolling, so it just fucks me up if I have to go up and down the thing looking. So I'll lay the pages out and then I'll write on the backs of them.
I remember when I first started writing, I was writing plays at the Royal Court, and I had one of those old, ridiculously heavy typewriters that I pulled around everywhere. It was an electronic one, but it only had 3 lines. So when I went, I've written this bit. Does it connect to the scene on page 23? I'd have to press the up button or down button for ages, get there and then go all the way back. It drove me insane. So I totally hear why you go, let's print it out. I can look through it. I much prefer holding something in my hand. It's better.
Cut it up and you can jump it about, and it's much more tactile, and I use pen, lots of coloured pens and stuff. But yeah, I mean, but more of it is that being given the space to sink into it and just spend time in it and think about how the characters talk to each other. But writing, I find more is management of a kind of writing dysmorphia. I read my stuff and I can enjoy it, but I haven't necessarily written all the right words into it at that point. It could be in quite a jaggedy shorthand, and it's picking that out and recognizing it, because you give yourself the benefit of the doubt when you read your own stuff back, and it's finding that is the hard bit, I think.
And how soon do you give it to someone like Amy or Andy or whoever else you're potentially is your producer on that? How soon do you let someone else read that? What, an early draft 1, draft 26?
Yeah, I mean, usually as soon as it's written.
Yeah, okay.
And then it just depends, because it depends what it is. I mean, I've written plenty of scripts that no one's interested in within the circle of people I work with, or just go, no, this is shit, or we don't like it, and I'm not interested in that, and that's fine, and then you just stick it in a drawer somewhere and kind of, some stuff comes back eventually,
Yeah. And the difference in your career between the genres of films, like I say, Rebecca I'd have never said you'd make Rebecca, but like from speaking to you now and what you say, you go, well, why not? And totally, now, why not? And I love that. I love that you're going, well, no, I just want to make films that appeal to me. Is there a certain genre you like? Is there a certain genre you go, oh, I haven't done that, I'd like to do that at some point? And if so, why?
I don't know. I mean, I'd like to do it all, really, if I can. I mean, the only thing I'm slightly reticent about is musicals, because I can't stand them. But in a way, that means
I love them.
I fucking hate them. But it's like, what? But then what makes me think why, and why maybe I should.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
But maybe I'm right about not wanting to do them.
And how do you kind of feel about animation and the Marvel universe and that kind of territory? Is that got any appeal to you?
Well, I mean, animation does, yeah, definitely. I'm a massive comics fan, and I have been since I was a little kid. So I find my relationship with the Marvel movies is quite odd, because it's everything I always wanted. It's all the comics I read being remade into film. So it's interesting. I mean,
but would you do? Is that something potentially one day do a Marvel movie, do an Avengers 71, whatever they want to do next?
Yeah, I don't know. I think it depends what's left. I mean, it's been kind of rinsed, so they will start again, I guess. But
yeah, back to the first one, back to Iron Man reboot, and bringing it back to In the Earth, because that's what mainly we're here to talk about. The cast you've got is incredible. Joel Fry is just someone I've really respected for a long time, and it's so great to see him do this on a big scale like this in terms of one of your films in that way. And again, Reece Shearsmith, again, one of those where you go, because I love Reece's work, but on this, I love the sort of the stillness and the quietness. Hedy Squires is in there, Elora Torchia, and just some brilliant actors. Is that something you, like say, with all your films, you sort of find these, and you find people who are really feel like they just get stuck in and get on with it, but also deliver these heartfelt performances? Is that something you sort of pride yourself on? Is that something you look for when you're looking for actors?
Well, I don't know if I find them. I mean, they're usually pretty well established, these people, and I'm just happy that they'll do the job.
Yeah. Yes.
So, but Joel Fry was interesting because we'd both done our first jobs together pretty much. So he was in Wrong Door.
He's in Wrong Door, right? Of course.
Yeah. Which a lot of the people I've worked with again have all been in Wrong Door. So I met Neil Maskell on Wrong Door and Anna Buring, Michael Smiley, all those. Basically, the cast is a bit like the crew in that respect. That when you work with people who are great, you always got half an eye on them to use them again at some point if you can. If they'll agree to do it, and you can tie them back into something. So it was that part was written for Reece.
Nice.
I definitely wanted to work with Joel, and I've been thinking about him for a long time. So that kind of made, and that was naturally, it came together like that. Yeah, I mean, sometimes it's like Asim Chowdhury, when I worked with him on Colin Bursted, I'd done an advert with him like 6 years before, and I always wanted to work with him again because he was so brilliant in the advert, and then didn't realise, and I had his email address over from that ad, and we'd been emailing backwards and forwards, and I thought, oh yeah, what's that guy called? Oh yeah, and I saw his email, and it was like, oh, we're just going to do our own TV show. I was like, yeah, whatever. And he goes, do you want to be part of it? I was like, no, I'm not. You're all right. And then when I got back to him, it was like, fucking hell, he'd won a BAFTA, and it was, he was actually a big star.
People do nothing. Yeah, it's brilliant.
Yeah.
So good. I love that he asked you to be part of that. And you're like, nah, mate, you're all right. Because the thing is, you were probably getting lots of those offers from actors or from creatives.
I think I was busy, to be honest, but it was,
Yeah. And how do you like to work with actors then in that sense? What's your process with them? Do you dive into character? Do you talk about, and again, we talked a little bit about this before, but maybe on set on the day?
A lot of directing, for me, the skill of directing is casting a lot of the time. So, which is a hoary cliche, but it's kind of true. So you can't, and if you've written specifically for someone, something's gone really badly wrong if they don't,
Very
if
true.
they misinterpret it entirely, so, or it's just exciting to see what they're doing, and you just let them get on with it. But I think, on a very basic level, like directing is a bit like giving directions, and I always find that if I'm asked to go somewhere and someone talks too much, I can't remember what they're saying. And, it's too much direction. I'm like, oh, all right. I end up just taking the first direction, which is like up the road on the left, and then I'll ask someone else when I get there. And I feel that too much talking on set like that, people can't remember what you're saying anyway, and it's confusing more than it is helpful. So my direction is much smaller. It's more like encouragement, or just, oh yeah, that was great, or faster or slower, or bigger or smaller, or what's the top of it look like? What's the bottom of this look like? And trying to make an environment where you can't make a mistake. For the performers don't feel like they're being judged. It's more that it's an arena to try out different types of performance, and then they trust me that I'll pick the right one in the edit.
I think that's a really interesting approach, and I think one of the most useful things that I ever heard as well was, I only give like one or two bits of direction, because as soon as the actors are trying to remember like 5 or 6 different micromanagements of one sentence, they're back in their head and they're thinking about the line rather than doing the line.
And also and I learned this early on with commissioning graphic design work, where I got these working this company, got this really expensive design company, went over there and I told them what to do, and I told them very specifically what to do. And what I got back was what I said. And it was shit. And it's like, and it was because I'm not a famous, expensive graphic designer. I'm just a bloke. And like, if I get a really brilliant actor and I tell them very, very specifically exactly how I would do it, then I'll get back a Ben Wheatley performance. And I don't want that, because I'd probably be in the films if I was an actor. But then good at it.
That's an interesting way. Yeah.
And it's the clues in the name. It's directing. It's not telling. That's the main thing.
I love that. And we can't let you go without talking about the Meg 2, The Trench. You're about to go off and start that, is that correct?
Yeah, it's starting to be in prep soon, yes.
Great. Is everything going well for it? Are you excited for this? Because I cannot wait to see you do the Meg 2. I think it's going to be brilliant.
Yeah, I'm really excited. I mean, for me, it's like a different muscle, so it's kind of more on the free fire side of things than it is maybe what In the Earth looks like. So it's just massive amounts of action and fun, and and working with Statham. So it's all on both sides. Giant sharks, Jason Statham. Very excited.
Yeah. Brilliant. I can't wait. Well, Ben Wheatley, thank you so much for your time. In the Earth is out now. Thank you so much for your time.
Yeah, thank you. It's been brilliant.
Honestly, really appreciate your time. Is there anywhere people can find you on the socials? I'm sure they're already following you anyway, but it'd be really nice to shout that out now.
There's a bit of Instagram maybe, but it's not very interesting.
There we have it, ladies and gentlemen. Ben, thank you so much for your time. You've been an absolute star. Appreciate it a lot. Good luck.
Cheers, guys. Thank you.
Cheers, Ben.
Thank you.
Bye.
Have an excellent time.
So thank you so much for listening. This has been our episode with the amazing Ben Wheatley. Remember, you can go out there and make your indie film just as Ben Wheatley has done. And if you're lucky enough to rise up, it is your duty to
Send the elevator back down.
Yeah, now say it with the feeling, like you mean it, like the elevator
back down.
If you like this, which I'm sure you did, then tell your pals, help us grow. And if you really like this, go on iTunes and give us a 5-star review. And if you really, really like this, come and join us on Patreon and be part of the team. Link is in the show notes to that. Amazing. Dom, you're a star. Thank you for doing this with us.
No problem.
We will see you all next Tuesday. Take care, you little legends.
Bye.
Bye.